All right. Well, guys, welcome back to the Raised Hunting Podcast. And last week, I think that's the first time we've ever given someone what the next topic was going to be. We kind of blurted it out there. But what we didn't tell you was that we're going to have a special guest. And so today we're going to talk about October strategies. And the reason we're talking about October strategies is because it's October. So it makes somewhat, at least a little bit of sense. But we invited a good friend of ours and a very successful whitetail deer hunter. Also owns some property near us that he manages as well. So we're going to pick Shane. Shane Edwards is with us today. Welcome, buddy.
Hello, fellas.
Glad to have you here. If you need interpretation, because Shane is from the South, we will offer that later on where we can tell you exactly what he said or we can clarify it. So, and Easton has just stepped out on us, but that's because Easton is doing the customer service for Raised Hunting, and we get quite a few calls on the scents, and so he has an excuse is why we're missing one for a minute. He'll join us here in just a minute. So other than that, it's Warren and I. It's October 7th. Is that right, or 6th?
I think it's the 6th, isn't it?
I think it's the 6th. I think that's correct.
Yep.
I can't see my phone.
6.
So we are kind of like into the October now. So anyhow, we wanted to talk to you guys and kind of give you a little bit of what we're doing and why we're doing what we're doing at this time of year and kind of go along. I don't think we get into the November stuff. We'll save that for another podcast, but specifically October.
We could call that one November strategies.
We might do that. It might make sense, or we could call it May and just really mess with people's heads, you know. So, all right. So where do we want to start?
Well, who wants to start?
I'll start because we're winning.
Oh, geez.
You know that had to
go.
come up sometime.
Yeah, you want to know the difference? Warren was here till 5 o'clock yesterday, and Eli doing work.
Yeah, he was
and
here.
And somehow, Dad always manages to be out of the office at 3 o'clock and in his stand and everything else picked out. So I wonder how that works.
You saw a lot of deer. I saw your video.
Yeah, I was going to shoot one in your yard just to spite you, just to let you know.
Doesn't bother me a bit.
There's got to be a record for the closest to the meat pole.
So, well, one of our strategies.
I'm going to set it.
Well, that is one of our strategies, though, and Shane, you and I were talking about it earlier before we were on here, and that is killing resident does, and why killing them early is better practice than necessarily killing them late, because if you kill them late, then what ends up happening is a lot of times you're killing deer that aren't your deer.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, you know, and
you shoot your does early or you shoot them late?
I used to shoot them late, but about 2-3 years ago, I thought, well, I'm just shooting everyone else's does because they're coming in. You know, you leave the food, you get 300 or 400 deer on your farm, and then who knows whose does you're shooting. So I've been shooting early.
So what's the theory behind shooting them late? I'll be honest, I've never had a theory about I just shooting does because I like shooting does. I've never really cared about.
That's because he doesn't own the ground. You know, he's not the one feeding them.
So,
right.
but what's supposed to be the benefit of shooting them late?
The benefit of shooting them late is that you're still getting rid of some deer. But what Shane's talking about, what I'm talking about, what the state is preaching is that shooting them early, you're shooting your deer, the deer that are core to your area. They've had the fawns and they're staying in that area, and so taking those deer out, you're actually thinning numbers off your farm.
Getting rid of the social pressure the bucks
Absolutely.
doesn't want, and you know, like he said, you're not feeding as many head either with your food plots.
And I do think that it also helps because I do think that if you've got too many deer, in our case, in some of the farms we hunt, we do, and that is you can have too many does, and therefore there is no buck activity amongst each other.
Yes.
You know, that everyone's got one, so why do I need to mess with anyone? I'm not
Absolutely.
coming to rattling antlers, nothing.
I think that's two-sided, though, because I think that sometimes helps you keep bucks there. You know, where you may have that big buck that he'd go off and would go over to their neighbor's place or go, you know, on that 2-mile journey to find the next doe and heat. Where if you've got them all in your place, he doesn't go anywhere. And the reason I say that is if you like Junior, Ralph, a couple of those other bucks that I've seen that they don't ever leave because they've constantly got a hot doe.
And I think that where that really becomes is what is your buck to doe ratio. You know, I mean, if it's 10-1 and you shoot some does and now it's 8-1. You're still going to have your bucks there. There ain't Now, if you're taking it from 3-1 to 1-1, you know, maybe you're having a, you know, now he is not going to, you know, he's going to breed once or twice and he's got to go look.
Yeah.
You know, so we're not in that category. I don't believe. I would say that.
Well, we would have to shoot a pile of does to get it down to that pile.
Yep.
So what opened my eyes up was 2019 at EHD. So we had way too many deer. I mean, like my neighbors and I, we shot like 50 deer one year. Next spring, we shot them late, so we probably shot everybody else's deer. But next spring, we still had just too many deer, and they were like, you couldn't even tell we shot any deer. So 2019 HD rolls around. I found 50 on my farm, and so that wiped them down pretty good. Because if I found 50, there were 50 probably every farm around me. So then you're losing 200 deer instead of 50. I seen a huge benefit of bucks coming out earlier the next year in daylight, hanging around the farm, and they just seemed like they weren't pressured as much. They weren't as nocturnal. They were out in daylight hours, and still to this day, I've got more daylight activity.
Really?
That's just my personal, what I've seen.
You think just because of less deer numbers?
I think social pressure, when there's too many does, those bucks, you know how they get out there and you get 40 deer in the field, and next thing you know, you got one thinks it hears something or smells something, it flags off, it runs off, and it clears the field on you.
Yeah.
I think that's what's happening. I mean, those bucks just doesn't, those are mature bucks. 4 or 5 year old, 2 year olds, they don't care. They come right back out 20 minutes later. Those mature deer don't like that. They like less stress.
Yeah.
Well, I think as much as our listeners probably want to hear, I mean, hopefully people listen and know that we're into shooting some does because we need to. It's a necessity. I agree with Warren. I still like hunting, and so shooting does. And I think I said it last night when Nick and I took the lead that that every time you shoot a doe, that's one more experience that you have for that time when you're going to have that buck standing in front of you. Whether it's trying to, like last night, shooting out of a hard-sided blind, making sure everything was clear, trying to coordinate in a tree stand or whatever it may be. But I definitely think that the viewers out there, the podcast listeners, are going to want to hear what are our theories about killing bucks in October. And so I think we want to get there. And Easton's joined us now. So
hey, what's up?
Weird. Normally I do this at the beginning of an introduction when my family meets someone that we've never met before, and I just say, "Look, I'm sorry," and that covers everything that
he
they
does
might
this
do.
every podcast.
Okay.
He tries to say that, yet there's a video of you on Instagram that's got 30,000 views because of how immaculately you're able to break wind on our poor camera guys. And you
So hey,
talk.
we apologize in advance for our father,
Yeah.
and just so you know, that covers everything. Okay, from now till whenever, just we apologize.
And
okay?
then to those 75 of you that saved that video, you guys are weird.
I would agree.
Okay, so let's talk bucks. October. Let's start with how many bucks have you killed in October?
Big mature bucks too.
Which splits
And the wide 10.
the wide 10?
late October though, right?
October 21st.
Yeah.
So mid.
Yeah. Shane, any October bucks?
Lately, I've had a lot more success because I'm hunting them more. I didn't realize that it's probably the most profitable time of the year to hunt big bucks. I always, couldn't wait for the rut to roll around, but then they blow out or they're honed up with a bunch of does. And but yeah, last 2 or 3 years I've taken several in October, anywhere from
Can you
October
count 'em?
1st.
I know it's hard for you Kentucky people, but
I don't have enough fingers, but
He just took
So
off
at least
his
10
shoes.
then.
no, probably 3 or 4 or something like that.
okay, 3 or 4.
Yeah, when you asked that question, I was trying to think, but yeah, that's in the last 3 or 4 years, and
And so, and I'm gonna guess that you're probably intentionally hunting all of those deer,
yeah, it's target
specifically
bucks.
that buck. Yeah,
Yep.
okay. You haven't had any in October.
October
I'm thinking.
10th.
Oh yeah. No,
that
it was
wasn't
the
a
8th,
mature
wasn't it?
deer. No, it was the 10th. It was the day that I killed.
Following
both.
the doe.
Yep. Yeah, October 10th. That would be the earliest
That was a
I've
pretty
killed one.
mature
But
deer.
I've never.
It was a 4.5.
Well,
Yeah.
for
I
me,
don't
it
even
was
know.
a really big deer. But I
a big deer
haven't
anyway.
killed much of. Yeah, I haven't killed really anything early in October. I think I've killed some of the ones I've killed with Dad have been like late, like October 20 and past. Everything I've killed that would be larger or more mature deer would be anywhere from last year's was November 3rd.
Second.
Yours was the second, I thought.
No, mine was the first.
Okay, so second, and then December 2nd or 3rd the year before that.
I think I've only killed one in October, which was Bullwinkle. No, I also killed that 10 with you, like the 30th. The one I hit him
It's
really
super
good. And
huge fat one.
it came, no, the one
No,
with
the
the
one
split
at the house.
G2s.
Oh.
160 some inch deer.
Oh,
Yeah.
that deer is really cool.
Yeah, I think that's the only 2 I've killed in October.
Well, I think that one thing that we would have to admit is that kind of like what you just mentioned, Shane, we're learning more and we're starting to figure out this October is everyone thinks the rut and thinks November. The deer are on their feet. That's when you drive to work and now you see them cross the road, you find dead deer. And then if you go sit in a stand, you might see 7 or 8, 10,
Well, it
12
depends on your
bucks a
goals,
day.
though, too. Because I would
Absolutely.
say if you want to kill just a good deer, November is probably the best time. So I think going into October strategies, I think the first thing that you have to have in October is you're going to have to pick out a deer. If you're going to try and kill a buck in October, if you're going to try and kill a buck in October of any kind of caliber, you better find one because they don't travel very far. And I'm speaking between like the 20th and under. So from now till the 20th of October. And
So from October 1st to the 20th.
yes, October 1st to the 20th. Now I still don't think they go that far once you get into like, the 20th to the 31st, but I think they'll get up and they'll travel a little bit more. But I think so to start with, if you're going to try and kill one right now, and I'm probably the worst person to talk to because I haven't killed one in this time period, although I'm going to try this year. I think first off, you better find a buck that you want to kill because they're not going very
patternable,
far.
just like Shane said.
Yeah, they're going from they're going from bedding to food and back, and they're not traveling. They're just not traveling all that far. So, and then I think the second thing is once you found that deer, you probably need to find him in daylight because you may find him on a food plot, you may find him on a field, but like I hate getting pictures at like 2 a.m. because there's not really any information provided for me there. I'd much rather get a picture of a deer where I think he may be near his bedding area at daylight or 20 minutes before daylight or something where I know, okay, he probably didn't go all that far, and so he should be in somewhat of this vicinity.
Well, see, I think we should clarify when we use the word pattern because there's a difference between your summer pattern and the pattern we have right now. So
When you
at
should
least
talk
in the
about
experience
when
there.
our season opens,
Yeah, okay, yeah, I was October 1 for archery.
because you want to talk
And-
about patternable.
Well, because Shane, do you still hunt Kentucky or not much anymore?
Not really. No.
Okay, because I know you're from Kentucky,
Right.
correct?
So
And well, hold on, just that in Kentucky they have early season starts, and
Yep.
then they're killing deer in velvet and
yeah.
patternable deer.
Is it
then-
September 1?
It's usually first Saturday of September, and
Okay. Well, like
Really
just
like
like out
fifth.
west, that's
Right.
that's the best time to kill a big
Absolutely. As far as patterns go, when you have them on that summer pattern,
deer.
you can, at least we could in Montana,
yes,
you could almost set your clock.
Yep.
If they entered the field at 7:30 one day, they're going to be there at 7:35 or
That's right,
7:25 the next day.
See, I think that first summer pattern is completely different than the pattern we're looking at now. So now it's October 6th. And what I really learned this year, which I've never done in the past, was I had so many cameras out during the summer. I've got all these deer, everything. That's great. I love watching them grow. But then I've noticed that where I'm getting some of my deer, it's a big enough area where I have other cameras. They move. We knew when they shed their velvet, they're going to move somewhere. And I knew what some of these deer were doing for a pattern during the summer. Well, then now they've moved into different areas, and some of them I got lucky and I have where they moved to. But now they're on a different kind of pattern. So not just because they moved, but they're on a pattern now that I'm getting them during daylight in some spots. But it's not near like you're talking during a summer pattern. A lot of times within like 30 minutes of when you're getting them consistently, they're probably going to be there that day. Now I'd say, yeah, they're probably doing the same thing just about every day, but there's a lot more randomness to it
Nowhere near as
compared
consistent.
to what the summer would be. But then once we get a little later into October and then into November, obviously they're going to be doing exactly just finding does. So I just think it's good to clarify that the pattern we're talking about now is a completely different kind of pattern than
Right.
because
I
right
agree.
now I would not put my money in the fact that I have a deer right now that's a big deer and he comes out into this field and I have some daylight video of him in just like last light. I would not put money on him that he's going to come there every single time within 30 minutes of that.
Yeah,
Now
'cause
he might come a little earlier, he might come a little later, but there's going to be variable to it a lot more.
and I think a lot of that variable is the food. They have acorns now. They have, if you got turnips, radishes, beans, whatever, they've got a
Yep.
smorgasbord now to where in the summertime it's alfalfa or beans
Yep.
pretty much every time.
And I've watched that with that point, like with beans and stuff. A lot of people know what deer are going to eat during certain times. I've watched the places where I normally have tons of deer and beans completely switch right now because
Yeah.
it's all they're all starting to dry. We're getting close to harvest,
Yes.
or some people are already harvesting. They aren't even hardly touching them. Like I'm finding loads of. Well, last night when me and Joey hunted, there's a bean field, a really nice bean field, and then an alfalfa field. And yeah, they were hitting it through the alfalfa through the summer, but they were primarily, like I'd say, more in beans. Now they switched, and there was like 30 deer all out in the alfalfa. So you got to pay attention to, like for us, if it was me and I was going to hunt a food source right now in Iowa, I'm hunting green. Yep.
Yep. And that goes to the guy that is looking to build a food plot. You know, what do I put in it? When do I plant it? Clover can be one of your best things to put in because
Absolutely.
like one of the places where we've been killing our does is they've been coming to these clover plots I got. And that's what Easton's speaking. If otherwise you're reliant on the farmer to plant alfalfa or something like that. But if you got access to those fields, and so understanding when those deer are going to make that switch. And I think the big one that we're all going to see that the patterns will change again, not only as we get colder weather as the rut comes on, but for Iowa, we have tons and tons of corn. And when that corn comes out, those deer not necessarily have to change their pattern; they got to change where they live.
Yep.
You know, and
Yeah.
we're still having some deer that are held up in those corn fields. And a lot of people, I've had people tell me, "You really think they can live in a cornfield?" And we've
100%.
seen it. We've seen that happen.
Yep. You find a big wallowed out spot, 10 feet. They just, you can tell deer hair all over the place. They've lived there all summer.
Yep. And everything's there. And so once that corn comes out, it increases our deer numbers for sure. Yep. And it decreases the places they can go. So that helps.
I think when that corn starts to dry out too, because when they're getting closer, and it just happens to be when they're getting to harvest, they can't live in it because I don't know if there's a ton of fact behind it, but I'm imagining deer primarily, some of them when they do live in the corn can live there because they have all their food, they have shelter, and they have the moisture from the corn. When it starts to dry out, even before they were to harvest, I think they're probably already starting to move.
Have to come out to go
They
get a drink.
at least have to come out of it to go do something. And the buck I'm hunting right now, my number one, he lived in the corn the entire summer. Didn't even know he was alive still. And then now that I'm looking at it, I'm kind of connecting dots here. Within like a week of when that corn started switching to dried out, he's in one of my creek bottoms too, during the daylight.
Yep.
And he was coming from the corn.
Or did he just transition from his summer range?
Well, that's the other thing too. Is I don't know if he's just to the point where he knows that okay, now it's time for fall. I'm going to go to where I live during the fall, or it's close enough that maybe he's going in and out of the corn, going to get food and coming back.
Okay, so let's think about this. I have a question here. Let's think about this. How? So we say consistent.
Yep.
But I have a lot of deer on camera and stuff that they are not that consistent.
I agree.
So let's just say a buck between now and October 20th. How consistent do you think he is? And what I mean by that is what food source is he going to? Is he going to the same food source? What bedding area is he going to? Is he going to somewhat of the same bedding area? Or is he all over the map and there's just some kind consistency that you're able to capitalize on at some point?
They're wild animals. So
I know, but I'm saying let's think about this here. So you got let's just say that Shane's phone here is our farm, okay? And I get one picture of him right here at 7 in the morning one time, okay? Mm-hmm. Now I'm not getting any other pictures, and there's food over here, and there's food over here, and there's good bedding over here. How far is that deer traveling right now, do you think?
I think we're in that transition period right now.
Yes.
And I think those deer could be traveling a long ways.
What's a long way?
But are they traveling consistently, or are you saying?
So if we're going to say consistent, in my mind, consistent means that I can bank on it at some point this is going to happen, right? That's what the definition of consistent is, over and over and over. I don't see all that many deer that I feel as though are what I would consider consistent in October. I do have places that I feel as though if I sit consistently, he'll do it at some point. But I don't feel as though that maybe guys that are just sitting over food plots all the time may have deer that are coming out every night into the same food plot and stuff. But I don't see that very much during this time period.
That's your summer pattern, I think.
Right.
To your point.
So how far are they going? That's my question.
So last night, one of my shooter bucks, 11, he was down on my 80 farm, and that was at dusk. Camera went off. There he is. I'm like, okay, he's still down there. This morning, about 2 o'clock in the morning, I wake up about 3 or 4 every morning. First thing I do is start going through those pictures, and there he is up on the upper farm, a mile away, and he's there all night long. He came up there because I knocked some corn down, and he's found that. I don't know how he knew it was down or whatever, but he come up there. He stayed right around that area.
Is that typical of him? Does he like?
He's a homebody.
If you've had,
I've had him on both farms. Yes.
Okay, so that's kind of his range.
Last 3 or 4 years. Yep. But he's a big range deer. You know how all deer are different. Some of them got a small home range. Some of them's got a big home range.
Now, will he typically, like, once he goes, you said it was like a mile or something, right?
Yep.
Will he stay there throughout the fall until he's, like, he gets through that first rut, or do you think he's going back and forth right now?
He's back and forth all year. I mean, he'll be down there in January. He'll be up. I mean, he's
So
back and forth quite a bit.
Do you think he's going back there and bedding, or on your 80 farm, or do you think that he sometimes beds on your other one? And then
it'd be interesting to know because late season
if you knew you'd killed him already,
right? Right. But
do you think though? Like, do you think that he's going to the same place roughly to bed, or do you think it's kind of random?
I'm going to that food plot tonight to hunt. So I think he's going. I think
I didn't
there's a
ask
good
you
chance.
where he's feeding, Shane. I asked you where you think
he's
he's
hoping
bedding.
he's bedded close by.
Exactly.
You know?
So, but on the 80 farm or the upper farm?
Upper farm.
Okay.
Yep.
See,
Okay.
and my number would have been a mile, and I'm just going off of a deer I saw yesterday. And I was driving. This is not the time of year you typically see him, and there he is. And now again, when we're talking consistently, there's a difference between consistently meaning I'm seeing them every single day, which is what we're talking about, a summer pattern, and consistently saying, hey, he comes to this scrape every 3-4 days. That's still a consistent pattern. I think trail cameras have helped us, whether they're cellular or not cellular, on figuring some of that stuff out, you know, and understanding when they're coming. And I definitely think that it's what's led us to the whole scent thing that we're involved in, because now I'm October is like the time I want to be there, because I do believe that I'm going to see a consistent pattern from a particular deer that leaves every year and comes back. And I'm waiting on him to come back. He hasn't come back yet. That's not inconsistent. He typically doesn't come back till October 10th to the 15th, something like that.
Well, and Ralph did that every year too.
Absolutely.
For 5 years. We had a buck that for 5 years he would
disappear.
Not one summer. Well, we got one summer photo, but holy crap. One summer
You
photo.
from Kentucky?
I know, right?
I'm rubbing off.
One time, but that was it. And then other than that, for 5 years, he would always show up. And it wasn't in September. It wasn't until October. But I would tell you, I disagree with you. I don't think most of them are traveling that far right now. And the only reason I think that is because we have one farm where we've got several cameras out on it. And Easton and I have some different cameras on it. And so far, I don't think that you or I have one picture of the same buck.
I do. I have one or two of yours, which is uncommon. In years past, I don't.
But of the amount of bucks that are on that place, there's a whole bunch, and our cameras aren't all that far apart that we are not getting.
From where you're hunting, mine is like
pictures of
mile and a half. Not that, if
and
that.
Not the one I'm thinking of, not the other camera.
But also the deer are all different. You know, I mean, they all got a different mentality, different. We don't know what changes their mind or whatever, but it just doesn't surprise me that you have a deer that's going a mile, you know, that he's wandering over here. It honestly, I feel like when the rut hits, for a little bit, they become more consistent with staying in an area. I do believe that there is breeding areas, not necessarily is it 100-yard square, and this is where it's not like a bedroom. They're not going there, but there's a particular farm where more breeding is done. I've seen it with elk. I believe that it happens with whitetails. And so I think that until we get to that point where they're triggered to be there, this can be one of the best times if you can catch a deer coming to a scrape for whatever reason. He comes to a scrape, there's a good chance he's going to come back to that scrape a couple more times here in the next few days.
I agree with that, yeah, 100%.
Well, for the next several days.
Well, next several days, for sure.
So let's just do this. I think it sounds to me like all of us have a deer we're hunting. So what is your October strategy to kill your buck? Try to kill your buck?
My October strategy is going to be that I have a particular scrape that I've seen this deer come to year after year.
During daylight.
During daylight hours. And it seems like once he moves in and he gets there, now it happens to be on the edge of a food plot I put in. And so that food plot is back in this year. It's come in really good. The scrape is already being hit by several bucks. I've kept it active with our stuff. I started it in July, got them going early, and now they're all hitting it. I'm waiting on him to show up, and I need a north wind. And a north wind puts it, I have a stand that I can hunt him, which I could end up not killing him simply from that fact, because there's no other way to hunt him with a different wind to where I think that can truly target where this deer could be within a 25, 30-yard area.
So yours is a waiting game, basically.
Mine's a waiting game in
the
some
wind
regard.
and when he moves in.
And I believe he'll move back there.
Yep.
So I think this will be really interesting too, because we have two different dynamics here. Because both you guys are hunting your own places. You've got farms, you got food plots and everything, and then both you and I are going to be hunting place that is not. That's just your typical ag stuff. So I think this will be really good for everybody, because I know we have listeners of both types.
Yeah, good point.
So who do we want to go to next then?
I'll go.
Okay, let's hear your strategy.
Because I'm depressed today about it.
You kind of already have an edge on all of us, really.
Why?
Because you have a daylight photo.
Daylight photo
fair.
of a mature deer.
So I have.
Well, let's just help you strategize.
Here's the
guy.
issue. Okay, shut up, Warren. This deer is the second year I've known him. I don't know if maybe we have pictures of him when he was even younger, but I haven't recognized him. So I've known him for 2 years. And last year where he hung out throughout the entire fall was by one of these massive community scrapes, and he was there all the time. Granted, it was later during the rut. Now, me thinking it's in the middle of, or right, it's a big field. So I was thinking that he's just running around there trying to find does, not necessarily living there. This year, I had not seen him all summer, and then I get a picture of him September 26th or 7th, so a couple days before our season starts. And it's him now, where that field is, he's only 200 yards away. And so now, and he was walking by during daylight, right in the first light in the morning, and right in front of one of my stands and going into bedding. And I know where all these deer are bedding, and the only way I'd say that he's not there, because I have been terrified to go in there, been waiting for the right wind, is if he was moving from where he summers, which I don't know where that is at, but if he was moving from there to somewhere else and he's just passing through and I happen to get a picture of him. But I really do believe, going off of last year's activity from him, he moved back. And so I got a picture of him, like I said, at 7:30 in the morning. So my goal right now is kind of similar to yours, but he's the only deer right now that I'm interested in shooting. So I am waiting 100% for the perfect wind. And when I go in there, and this is the first time I've ever had a buck this early, so I'm going in there the only times when I have that perfect wind and being ready, and primarily in the morning, because I know that I've hunted this stand, or right next to this stand, in an evening, but I don't want to go in there and risk busting him in an evening, because in the morning, hopefully he'll be coming back to me. So I just got, mine is whatever, and it's tough because we don't get the wind a lot. So
that's interesting. My strategy's always totally opposite, because my farms, you go into the fields, you've got good access so you can get in there and catch me coming back.
Yeah.
I go in there in the mornings. October, I never hunt mornings in October because I blow them all out. They just run everywhere. Don't even know if they're going back. I kind of blow their pattern. So I have to hunt evenings only. So that's pretty cool hearing that you've got a place so you can go in the mornings hoping to catch you coming back to bed, which is very effective.
I kind of have to rely on finding where their bedding is at, or finding where they're going to wherever that food is and catching them in between, whether it's early in the year or throughout the rut. So in your situation, if you're hunting a food plot like that, though, I would be the same way. I'd be hunting in the evening because I'm going to wait for them to come there.
Right.
But I have access points where I don't have to go through fields and stuff.
Yeah, that's good.
Warren?
Leaves me. So the deer that I'm targeting just showed up not too long ago. And he showed up at 6:20 a.m., which to me is really encouraging, because I do think that I have a good idea that he's going to be bedding near there. So the first thing I'd say I'm doing different than everybody here is I'm going to be hunting him solely out of a saddle. So I'm going to be adjusting on him all the time. And going to these different spots. Doesn't matter in the wind to me, because I'll just go and sit on the other side of wherever I think he's going. But the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm probably going to hunt tomorrow just because the weather's so good. But after that, I'm going to find a day, and I just listened to one of our podcast clips the other day of us talking about you can bump one time. So I'm going to go round up all of my cell cams. So you guys can love that.
Here goes the cheater again.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So cell
we'll even call him the cheater buck, and I ain't got a single problem with it.
And a pocket full of weights.
Yeah. So I'm going to go get all my cell cams, and I am going to take them through this. I'm going to take one day, and I'm going to try to pick a crappy day, because I've only got the one picture, so I don't feel as though he's there every day. But he could be, and I'm going all in, so I'm going to run the risk that I might bump him, and I'm going to walk through all of it, and I'm going to try and find the most buck activity that I can, either rubs, scrapes. I would love to find like a big scrape like I found when I killed bullwinkle, where you can tell there's a community scrape in the timber in the bedding area, and I'm putting a cell cam on it. And then I'm going to go and I'm going to walk through somewhere everywhere else. I'm going to put a cell cam on that. I'm going to put a cell cam everywhere that I feel as though I might see him. And then I'm going to hopefully get a daytime photo of him somewhere, and then I'm just going to hunt off of that information. And I'm going to try and catch him going to bed.
You said you don't know if like he's still right there in that area.
Oh, I believe he's close.
I was gonna say I'd put a lot of money because that deer didn't summer there. He didn't live there through the summer. And
I don't think he did, but
if he did though, I'd be pretty impressed because
I would too. But we don't have a ton of cameras on there.
We got that's fair, but I also think that he would have shown up somewhere in one of those fields with how many other deer were getting on some of those cameras. That deer, I think he just moved in, and he was there last year during the fall and during the rut and everything.
Yeah,
so I'd say he's there now.
Yeah, I believe he's there as well. That's why I know that so this is to everybody out there, because we just posted this clip yesterday on TikTok and got a ton of views as far as bumping your deer. And here I've been playing the game myself. Like, man, do I just hunt him really, really delicate, and just try to hunt the edges and figure out what's going on? Well, here, if I'm going to take our own advice and say you can bump him one time, you're going to be okay, well, then I'm just going to cash that in, and I'm going to take one time. And if I bump him out of his bed, then so be it. I think that he will come back. But then the information that I'm going to get once I have cameras in there, I'm going to be able to find him somewhere where he's close enough to his bed that during daylight I'll either be able to catch him in the morning going back, or I'm going to be able to catch him leaving it somewhere in the afternoon. And then I only have 1 year of history with him, and none of that started until November like 15th or 16th. But I saw him like 6 different times in that window. Sometimes I think that November is the best time to pattern deer, because we've seen a few now that it seems like for whatever reason they will go and they'll find a doe and they do the exact same thing.
After that 15th of the Thanksgiving's great.
I've seen we had one in there that you've seen the sheds too. We called Junior. Yeah. It was like the 6th to the 10th or something every evening, every single evening. Now he always was following a doe, so you got to, and it was the same trail. He'd come out the same exact trail, following a doe every afternoon.
You've patterned that doe then, haven't you?
Well, I think he was getting other does, and I think he was pushing them in there, and then
we knew it was a different doe because so Warren had an opportunity to shoot him, and so did Karen. Karen and I happened to be sitting in another stand one day at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Here comes Junior, and then we're like, well, Warren and Easton aren't going to see Junior today because we just saw him. Next thing we know, we get a text from Warren a couple hours later, says Junior just walked out with a doe. We didn't have a doe when he came by us, so he picked up another one and went back up there. Yeah. And that's what we kind of figured. I couldn't believe it. I was the one saying, there's no freaking way. You guys are wasting your time going back, because he'd get out in the field, and what saved his life was a hay bale blind. We didn't trust putting a double bull blind in. The guy had hay bales, and I had a hay bale blind. Put that in there, and that kept Warren and Karen both from being able to shoot him because we had him at 15 yards,
I had
20.
him at 16 yards one time. Couldn't shoot him, yeah.
Yeah, and so – but that's a rare occasion when you find
this deer was doing the same thing, though. I saw him 4 different times last year in the morning following a doe, same trail.
See,
fields or woods? I'm sorry.
In the timber.
Very good.
In the timber.
In the timber.
I don't think that would be that uncommon, because if you look at that place, it was he's not hunted at all. Like literally probably sees people a couple times a year, if that.
And there's enough does, though.
Yeah, and he doesn't have to go very far to find anything. So in that situation right there, he's in a sanctuary almost. So like there's no reason for randomness when he has enough of what he's looking for, and he wants to eat, he wants a doe, and he likes living there. And he doesn't have to worry about going to find other does. Right.
But I will say, too, on this deer that I'm hunting, I didn't have any pictures. I had cameras in there, and I didn't have any pictures of him all year. And I still didn't have any pictures of him until I saw him. I saw him hunting, and then I was like, who? Because I thought it was a different deer that we knew, and then I was like, holy crap, who the frick is this deer? And then I saw him again that same afternoon. Then the next day, saw him again, and I think it was 2 days later the next time, I saw him again. And then I moved cameras over there, and then I got pictures of him. And I was like, and so I also... that is somewhat played into how I placed my cameras this year, because I had a hunch that he was staying towards a certain part, and so far that's the only place that I've gotten a photo of him. So I don't know what he does in October or anything, but I do feel as though if I can get close enough to where he's bedding now, that I will have a good chance at killing him. But it's going to be a matter of of that.
Well,
If
let's
he does what he did in November last year, he's in trouble. That
Here's
much
my
to us.
thing with I don't remember exactly what I said in that last podcast with the bumping him. I think it depends.
We said
I
that we
think
felt as though you could bump
we
a deer
or
a couple
you-
times.
I
No,
know
we did.
I'm not afraid to bump a deer.
Well,
Okay, so
you're
I don't-
trying to
I
train
don't-
him a little different.
Yeah, but
though.
I don't do it on purpose. But I also am not afraid.
I would 100% prefer not to. I don't want to, and I also think that it depends on the deer and the situation. Your situation, I wouldn't be worried about bumping him once or twice.
Why?
I think because other people have been around. I think we've seen him enough in certain situations where he knows something's up, and he doesn't go anywhere still. So in a situation like that, I don't think it's going to hurt you to go in there and do your cell cam thing. You take a day and you bump him, whatever, no big deal. He's probably going to come back.
I also think the information is worth it at this point.
I would agree.
I think, and this deer too, we feel as though is probably, if anything, on the downhill slide. So to me, it's worth going all in and trying to kill him this year instead of trying to play it super safe.
Mine, though, and like you gave me crap for it last night, I am playing him so safe because I don't know much about him. I don't know if he's a really stupid deer, a really smart deer. He might just be an average deer. I have no idea. I just know that he's been here twice, and I'm going to wait for the one time. I don't want to go in there and bust him once. I don't want to risk having to ever bust him. I would be okay with seeing him one time. As long as I see him that one time and I did everything right, that's my opportunity.
If I had your information, I'd be doing the same thing. I'd be doing exactly what you're doing because you do have a daylight photo of him, so you can bank that he should do that again at some point.
Yep.
I don't have a daylight photo yet, and that's what I care about is I need to know where he is at least close somewhere during daylight.
Well, so let's summarize a little bit, and then I got a question for you, Shane, because the three of us, the one common denominator that you have stated, and I have stated, Shane's the only one that didn't, is that our focus in October is somewhat around scrapes.
Mine, if I can find the right scrape, I will spend the majority of my time on that scrape.
Mine is I'm starting now,
Right?
Because I have a theory on that. But.
Okay, but Shane, you're the only one that now. Are you reliant more on food, you would say, than you are on scrapes at this time, or is it? Am I
may
wrong?
change my mind now.
No, I'm still on food, but listening to all these different, you're seeing them in the morning times, and they're, and he's sending his in the morning time. It's good to hear different opinions and different, stories about it, because then you don't get closed-minded and you can open up and broaden your ways of hunting. But I primarily still I'm waiting for that cold front, a little bit of rain, something like that. That's when I've had really good luck with it. Of course, I set my farms up for that. And a lot of times there is a good scrape. And now you all said that, I think back, the field I'm hunting tonight, last year David come over and I shot a deer, and he brought Dan over to track it. And we knew right off the bat that this deer probably wasn't dead, but he ducked and turned right, at the shot. And we had Ben was filming it. So you see the deer turn, but he had come out to that scrape. And about every time he come to that field, he comes to that scrape and that rub tree that's right there together. And now you're all saying that. When I was younger, I'd find a scrape in the woods. I was like, I'd get all giddy. I can't wait to hunt this scrape. And I guess I hunted so much, and probably wrong, that I kind of just fell back off of that and went to the food, because I've had, good luck hunting between the bedding and the food source, or right on the food source.
Well, I think that there's certain scrapes that are going to give you a way better chance of killing a deer.
I agree with you.
You're doing the same thing as far as the weather. You're just banking on the right
Yeah, to get
day.
them
They're going to come to the food. Yeah.
Get them in daylight.
And that's where I'll tell you from what I've found, if you can find the right scrape near a bedding area or something, you can get those big bucks in daylight. But this is the exact problem with them, is in order to find those ones, in my opinion, you gotta go in there during this time.
And
So
you're going to have to be extremely, extremely close to where they're bedding and trying to get into that.
Yeah, you got to find it. Like, now I'll tell you, like, if I hadn't found Bullwinkle the way that I did, as far as just seeing him hit the scrape, I'd have been really, really nervous about just walking through there trying to find some kind of scrape or somewhere that would tell me that he was close to there, because he doesn't tolerate it. I know that he doesn't tolerate it.
So I have a question, because I think a lot of listeners would probably, I think to your point, Shane, Iowa is full of scrapes by the time we hit November 1st.
Yes.
I mean, the bucks scrape everywhere. How do you pick out one that is one that you should be hunting as opposed to just another scrape? I mean, is there anything that you guys are looking for? I know there's some things that I'm looking for, but and then I guess I'll go ahead and give my interpretation of that, and that is I'll add scent to them. You know, I'll cover scrapes up that are all within a certain area. I'll throw sticks in them and everything else, make them where they don't even want to go back there, and leave the one that I need them to come to. And that has worked well for me, taking their existing scrapes, but then making one of them the main one, and honing them in on that.
I think it depends on certain spots, because I've seen multiple different answers to that as far as what my opinion is on it. And last night would be one of them, because I was watching this buck that was way the heck over there, but he was out on the edge of a field, and he came to, when I first saw him, he started making a scrape, and he was hammering it. And I wasn't paying attention. I was like, well, he's so far away. We didn't ever have a chance for him to even think of him coming over to us. Well, I look back over there a couple minutes later, and I'm like, what the heck? Is he still right there in the same spot? I look up through my binoculars, hammering that exact same scrape, never stopped. Like he's kept going. Now, here's where the theory of it comes in, because I think there's multiple along that field edge. I should walk over there at some point when I'm out there next and look. But he hammered that one for a long time. And then I saw him start walking down the edge of the field, another like 20 yards, hit another scrape, like real quick. Just like lifted his head a little bit, scraped once or twice, kept going, and went another 20 or 30 yards, did the same thing, another quick one, and then went on to about his feeding and everything. So with that, I think that one thing I'd be looking for is size of the scrape. You'll see huge scrapes. And a lot of times when you find a huge one, granted you had a video of one deer making a huge scrape, but when you get these big ones that are large, I mean, typically you have multiple deer hitting it. That's why it's growing so fast.
When we're talking large, we're talking sometimes 3-4 feet.
Yep.
And it's bare. Like they have rubbed everything or scraped everything out of there. So that's one thing I'm looking for. And two, if there is other ones in the area, which one are they probably going to most naturally come to in the first place, depending on where they're, like if I have an idea where their bedding is, where they're probably coming from or to. So then I can see which one at least they're probably going to come smell first, depending on the wind, obviously. But which one are they going to hit? And they're going to be like, oh, there's a scrape. I'm going to hit that one. And it's the convenient factor if I don't have one that's obviously larger. Yep.
And I feel like the scrape I'm looking for a scrape that's in close to wherever I think that deer is bedding. And I think to your point, the more I think about the times that I have been walking through bedding areas like that, I don't seem to find very many like little scrapes. Like it seems to usually be that there's just one in the, like on field edges. Yeah, I'll find a crap load of scrapes, but it seems like near the bedding area, near wherever I think that the deer is, there's one.
Or it's
big,
around
big
that
scrape.
Entire tree, like the camera I pulled for you last night. They seem to work all the way around it, but it's on that one spot.
Yeah, that's the only one. Like you could go walk the rest of that whole thing, and you might find one or two spots where one buck just was all horned up and made one scrape, but you won't find anywhere else right there that's got a scrape that is the size of a car hood.
That's the one that makes you feel warm and fuzzy.
That's the one that gives me warm and fuzzy. Like if I find that one in the right spot, and especially if I can find it early, like now, I'm like game on, because I know that at some point you're going to hit this. As long as I do my job and I'm careful on hunting it with the right winds and everything, and I'm accessing it okay, my chance of killing you is very, very good.
So I will. Did you have an opinion on that?
No, you guys are way further ahead on scrapes than I am. I mean, like
I don't know about that, but so this is a theory that I'm kind of learning this year with how many cameras I've had throughout the summer and doing scrapes, and what we always say, and we're right. Science is right with it. Deer are always making scrapes throughout the entirety of the year. It's just a matter of how much. Now, I was under the impression that watching and observing in certain areas, and it's very different. Throughout the summer, as we're getting closer to October, November, they're going to start scraping more and more. And I saw that. So they shed their velvet, and my cameras lit up. Like all my cameras that were scrapes were getting hammered by multiple different bucks. I was getting new bucks coming in, moving in. So I'm like, wow, this is like more than I've ever had. And then now I know they're moving to their fall ranges and where they're going to be during the rut. And I've noticed that even some of the deer that were hitting my scrapes are now kind of, I think it went for like a week, because now it's changed. I got my cell cam. I've got that one cell cam, which I'm going to get yelled at for now. But the one cell cam that now it had gone like a week where they weren't hitting it again, and I'm watching deer come by Some of them I did not know, and then nothing stopping to hit them. And I think the reason behind that is because now they're all hitting them again. And it's going crazy again. So I think the reason behind that is that that 1-2 week period where they've shed their velvet to the point of if they're going to move, that's what they're doing. They're moving to where they're wanting to go. Because I even watched one deer that's consistently hits one of my scrapes walk out into a field with another night with Joey, and he came out right next to that scrape and didn't even bother.
I think it's
going.
an introduction period. I think when they start moving to their fall range, they hit that scrape, let everybody know that they're there, and then they're not as concerned about it for a while until you get closer
until it's the challenge part.
Yeah, until it starts saying I think that's when you see them go nuts in later October, because now they're saying this is my spot.
But my reason for saying that is because like that first week October, which we're still in somewhat right now, I wouldn't hone in 100% on one scrape, banking on that buck to come hit that scrape, because I don't know if he's going to do it consistently. I would say you have a better chance of him hitting consistently after about that first week when he doesn't need to prove himself again. He needs to keep his dominance. He needs to let everybody know he's there. And so sitting there for a year, like your deer, that hits it every single year, that's when I'd be sitting on it.
Right.
But I guess my point is I think there's a little bit of a gap.
You have other years of information on that, so yours is an odds game.
Yep.
It's just a matter of time.
I think
sitting there.
so. Let's summarize the scrapes a little bit. I think so that someone could listen to this and be able to say. So if you're trying to kill a buck, you're not necessarily looking for the biggest one or the baddest one or whatever. You want to kill a nice deer. Hunting scrapes, starting let's say the first weekend October, could be a very highly probable way of doing so. You're going to start to see random deer showing up at those scrapes. That first week I don't really include, that October 1st to the 7th. There's some going on, but I'm going to talk about something that I got on video a minute. And then when we get to the 7th to the 14th, now you're going to start to see more deer hitting those scrapes and starting to challenge other deer a little bit. And then when you get to the 14th to let's say the 30th, I truly believe that your best strategy is hunting scrapes.
The right scrapes.
The right scrapes. Picking the right scrapes and hunting them.
Before they find a doe.
Okay, so yes, but and that's provided, and please, anyone that's listening, take this into account and apply it. If you're in the South and your rut is a little bit later, you got to kind of figure when our peak of our rut or the start of our rut, I always say, is right around November 3rd or 4th. We've got video of bucks breeding does on those days, and that typically seems to be when everything changes for us to say full-on rut activity. But I saw something the other day that, because, and Shane, I don't know how much you rattle or grunt or things like that. Do you do much calling? I know you use a decoy a lot because I've seen some of the video.
Keep doing that, please.
Yeah, I mean, I've not had a lot of luck rattling in like really mature deer, but sometimes I just try to get things going or whatever. Maybe bored, I'll jerk the horns out, hit them together, and get I was really good for that. I mean, I could not believe the first year, and I had 3 or 4 bucks first rattling sequence come in, and the buck with the charge of decoy, I'd rattled right before that. Then he comes out and he's 200 yards away, and he sees that decoy, and he's like, okay, and then here he comes, like on a string. And that was pretty cool. But so it's a little bit addictive. But when I get down, get serious, I really don't rattle a whole lot. I mean, trying to kill mature deer.
See, and I don't want to say I'm the exact opposite, because there's times when I don't rattle as much as I used to, because I like to see deer come.
Yes. So
I would rattle at everyone, and I want it, and then they would come, and you might not get a shot, or they wind you. Now I'm much more selective when I rattle, but I'm whacking the antlers together
every 20 minutes.
But
the forking horn that just came in, he could hardly get out of range before Dad would rattle again.
I'd rattle again to make him come back, just because it was cool to see him.
It's fun.
Yeah, I do not blame him. I think it's awesome to watch him come running into antlers and stuff.
But I've killed 2 or 3 of my best deer, mature deer, after rattling. One of the things that I have been skeptical of, I'm packing. Nick's been my camera guy.
Splits?
Splits was one that I rattled.
Who else?
And then the wide 10. I hit
wide 10.
He showed up down in the end of the food plot, and I hit the antlers, and he circled around, came right up that road. Yeah, so those 2 for sure. And then I rattled Juice in 2 or 3 times, but didn't kill him.
Well, that's because Juice just wanted to kill everybody.
Yeah, well, he was the man.
Yeah.
And so,
he was the Conor McGregor of the deer world.
But
Except he could actually do something. But.
so, but and if someone was to ask me what's your sequence, it's a minute and a half, 2 minutes. If you watch one of our episodes, Easton knows, he mimics me and makes fun of me talking about how long you rattle. The other night, now that my cameras, a lot of my cameras are on video.
What he didn't say is after he did that, a buck comes in and he shoots it.
It was the biggest one to date for me, too.
He's making fun the whole time.
Second now.
And then soon as before he can even hang the antlers up, all of a sudden you see his whole demeanor changes. He goes from, you want to do it like this, and then
take a little bit of a break here.
And then all of a sudden he's like, buck.
Yep.
So, but my point is one, this time of year, I would say, this is me saying this, and I'm going to completely contradict myself, is not a very good time of year to rattle. Too early. They're just not ready for that. As we get farther into October, it becomes one of the best times to rattle. During the rut, it's I don't want to say it's fruitile, but it's very difficult.
Fruitile? What the heck is
Futile.
that?
Futile is the word.
Futile?
Futile. Sorry, I put it all in there. But
we struggle with words at Ray Dante.
I understand.
So, but it becomes difficult at that time. But right now, the other day, I think it was 2 days ago, I got video of 2 bucks that fought for over an hour.
What?
My camera kept going off and going off and going off, and it's the same 2 bucks. And while those 2 bucks are fighting, 2 more bucks show up. I don't know how many others might have showed up, but at one point there's 4 of them, and they're all like 120-inch deer. But
and they weren't like going ham. Like they were just doing the messing around type thing.
But they did it for over an hour.
You see, I don't understand that specifically because I have now sat 3 days. Every day I've had 2 deer fighting. And they're not like fighting, but I've always classified it. Now, granted, they've only did it for like a minute or 2 or whatever.
They're pushing.
And they're just like playing with each other, screwing with each other a little bit. And maybe have a little bit of dominance going there. But why in the world would they be just unless they're having that much fun for an hour?
They probably, dude, they're deer. All they got to do is eat corn and lay around. You might as well do something.
Well,
that's just odd.
But these 2 bucks went up. My point being is that don't be afraid to carry your rattling antlers with you, and you see a buck out there, or even just blind rattling right now just to see if the wind's good. And that's been my biggest thing is I'm not a big blind rattler because I'm always, especially Iowa, they respond, and I don't want them coming from the downwind side of me.
Yep.
And so I don't do it a lot. But I do think, like, now I'm considering packing these antlers and hitting them together at this time of year.
Well, it is a good time to do it right now because if you're, like you're saying, you can see them. It's a win-win. Like, if they don't come in, you're not educating them. But if they do come in, great. There's your buck. You already know you wanted to shoot him, so it's not going to hurt you anything because they're probably other deer fighting right now. Just not hard.
Having that said, my oldest deer I killed was a 9-year-old, 9.5-year-old. I think I was telling you about him.
You
Sent you some
pictures.
pictures.
Good
Yeah.
Lord.
So he was, when I bought that 80 I was talking about, he was 5 years old, and the guy said, "You've got to kill this buck. He's a bully buck." And he was a big old wide deer. I mean, like,
He's like 120-some-inch 6-point.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. And he would be a 6 or 7 every year. And I only saw him in daylight twice for those from 2015 to 2019. So he started daylighting just a little bit on this field over on the 80 about 5:30 in the evening. 15 minutes left. I thought I'll get it in a blind, throw a decoy out there, going against everything I believe in on an old mature deer, and throw a decoy out. 5:20 comes along. I hit the horns together. 5 minutes later, it looked like he was huge, big-bodied deer. He looked like a bull coming across the field, like an Angus bull, and he field dressed 257 pounds. Probably wouldn't score 100.
Yeah, he's little.
I mean, he's neck down at 9.5 years old. He's lost it all.
It's a pretty crazy photo.
What does he have, a cane on?
Pretty much. But he's
hobbling in.
Oh, he looks like he could whip anyone.
Yeah, his neck was.
His rack sucked. But
Is that the one that plowed your decoy over?
No, that was the same farm, but just different deer. And but he comes in, and he's like at 14 yards bristled up on that decoy, and I'm like, this can't even be happening. I pulled back, and I hadn't hunted out blinds much, and you got to be careful on those blinds, like you were talking about. I hit the blind with the stabilizer. And I'm
yeah.
Doom, and he runs out there about 37 yards. I didn't know the yardage, so I had to let up, arrange him. I'm over in the window this time. Got lucky, smoked him. He runs 150 yards and dead. And I was so glad. As soon as he left,
He has no head. all neck.
Warren is passing around a picture of your deer.
Right. He looks like a bull in there.
He does. He's just huge.
But
That's awesome.
he as soon as he was dead, all the bucks started showing back up on camera. I mean, once he was gone, it was you've seen that, I know.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. That buck that we're talking about that I was making fun of Dad and shot him.
Yeah, and he was not the biggest buck, just like this one's not the biggest buck, but some of them just have that demeanor that they're going to, and a lot of times they'll be the ones with the broken tines, they'll be the one that's missing an eye.
Yep.
For whatever reason, it seems like a lot of them are the inferior deer, almost like rack-wise.
They're just like people.
Yep. And
I think
you got mean guys. And
yeah, they got something to prove.
I think that's all in our heads. I think some of them are just brawlers. Because like Juice is 180-some-inch deer, and his demeanor is, I'm going to wreck everyone.
Yeah.
And I think that some bucks are that way and some aren't. And
I think with Juice, though, his body was so big, too, that it was fun for him to just hammer them because nobody was a competition.
He had everything to destroy other deer. Yeah,
his rack was
just
built.
The configuration of his antlers would be hard to even.
I can't believe that you had that old of a deer that was still like, okay, I don't care that I'm 90 years old compared to everybody else. I'm still going to come whip up on somebody.
Yeah. Well, I think Bullwinkle was fighting with somebody right before I shot him.
Yeah, he was old deer too.
Yeah, the year before
deer fighting
8.5, he had half his eye blown out. I mean, he had big pus
Goodness.
stuff going. He fought every year. I mean, he was
Wow.
mean.
So I think, well, I would disagree with you a little bit on as far as I think if you're just trying to kill a buck in October, it's probably not the best time to kill a buck. I think you're better off trying to find a specific buck that you want to kill. And then from there,
you got to find where he's at.
You guys just take what we say and apply it if you want. We're not telling you how to do anything. We're just telling you what we're trying. As you can hear, we got 4 different strategies into how we're going to do this. But I do think you're helping yourself and you're doing a favor in October if you can at least try to locate a buck or a few that are in at least somewhat of an area. Then try and put a little more work in and find somewhere close to where you think that he may come out. Find some buck sign if you can. How aggressive you want to be, that's up to you. And then I think from there, then hunt it. And maybe you need to make a scrape or put a rub tree in. I'll tell you right now, rub trees, if you got them coming to a food source, like I don't know if you're using rub trees, but if you need your buck at 25 yards, you need to put a rub tree in and some buck junkie on it.
Right.
I'm telling you right now.
You guys got me. I'm getting ready to start putting out rub trees. Well, probably too late now.
Beside the fact that it works, it's just freaking cool.
Yeah.
It's
Just
fun.
out of curiosity, do you have any of your rub trees in like the trees or in the woods?
One.
And does it work well?
That's the one where he killed his deer last year.
Oh, yeah.
And that's where I just got the picture of my deer.
Yeah, that's true. See, I was just
Rub
curious.
tree in the woods.
Because I know.
Yeah.
Because I was curious because a long time, or I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, you'd start putting camera right in the middle of the food plot sometimes, and they're curious. So they come over and
destroy it.
Yeah. But I was curious if you put a rub tree in, say, a field where it's wide open, it's the only tree sitting there,
right,
as opposed to in the woods,
there's lots
how
to pick
much
from.
difference? Because right now, I was just called you the other day about it because I have 2 rub trees out, and I'm like, what the heck? I can't get them to hit it. But you're sitting there, oh, mine are blowing up. And granted, I was just curious. Yeah, his is too. I'm like, what the heck? So
he didn't put his deep enough in the ground. It's almost on the ground.
Yeah, well,
my deer are just more aggressive.
Okay.
They're just bull.
Whatever.
But
I was just curious if you have experienced much difference.
Didn't you concrete the last one, though?
I didn't concrete any this year. I was trying to see. I should have. Last year I put concrete in.
Really?
Yeah. And it's a good thing I did because when
I think that's a good idea because those 2 that I showed you, they've almost pushed over. I bet you they're 20 inches deep at least to 2 feet. But they might have broke it. I'm not sure if they didn't break it.
Oh, well,
I think they might have broke it at the base.
I first started doing it, Shane, I did it for the exact reason of what you're facing, where you get deer come to the food plot that you want. But if your food plot is too big, or it's a cornfield or whatever, or something they're coming to, and it'd be different if you were gun hunting. Okay, I can shoot them pretty much anywhere they are, depending on the size of the field. But I need them, like Warren was saying, at 25 yards or less. You put this tree there, and it's like, oh, well, I'm here to eat, but at the same time, I need everyone to know that I run this field tonight, and they walk to it, and you can get a shot. And so, last year, I passed up the 9.
It's like a sucker at the bank. You just can't not take one.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
It's perfect for these blinds. We're talking about sometimes it's hard to get a shot, certain angle, especially you guys, filming. So you can shoot. You know, you can put that rub out there. I'm sure you
Put
can
it where you want it.
Yep.
For sure.
That's true.
But to your putting them in the trees, the scent on it, and then getting them to start. Once they started on that tree, every deer, including, I mean, I honestly believe with all my heart that if he had let her walk another 8 feet,
He's gonna rip that thing
he was
out.
going straight to the tree, and Warren just shot him before he could get to it.
Yeah.
You know, whether he was just going because there
No regrets.
was two bucks fighting, and so whether he was just going there to say, okay, I know you guys are over there, but let me show you who I am, and then mark his territory. But
So, is there any certain trees you like to use, or is that getting too deep in the secrets?
White pine.
White pine.
White pine. That seems to be our favorite. Now they tried a couple different
I
ones.
will say white pine though, and I think you need to be careful on size, like not too small,
Oh,
because I have smaller ones and they aren't.
see,
That's
I definitely.
and dads are like that big around, like it's just a branch of it or something.
Yep.
And mine they're branches from one, but like that. So it's like, I think some of these deer look at that, they're like, I'm not gonna rub that. I don't know. I mean,
Yeah,
I've seen plenty of small,
So
rub
4 or 5
trees,
inch
but
tree.
6 to 8 inch,
6 to 8 inch.
6 to 8
Okay.
inch diameter kind of tree.
They'll break 4 or 5 inches
Yeah,
in no time.
I mean, the size of his cup would be perfect. Maybe that would be on the small side.
Okay.
He's what yours?
It's a white pine.
No,
What's
you
the
had-
other one
You
you
guys
had?
had something
Scotch
else.
pine. Oh, white birch.
White birch. That's what it was.
They haven't hit that one.
Hold on.
Yeah, the coons love that one, but
You're saying the size of this?
at the
That's
smallest.
like 3 inches. You guys measure
Yeah,
different here
no,
in Iowa.
Who invited this guy?
I'm not gonna say it.
Yeah, there's that guy. Dad jokes, you know.
That's all right.
Yeah.
But the other thing is I start it for him. You know, I'll
about to
scrape
say
it up.
mine's smaller than
The
that.
the
but-
main reason that I believe we think that the white pines work better, 2 reasons. One, it's soft, and number 2, it has pine. It has
This is the secret, man.
Yeah, don't. What are you doing?
David.
It
Come on, man.
It sticks to the tree.
Yeah. Okay.
So I don't believe that. I don't believe that
You
it's
want a sappy tree.
Yeah. So anyhow, and
Just sad trees. That's what we mean by that. You know,
Okay.
just
we
real
think
bad
that the
trees.
deer actually do recognize that, and so they
They just
seek
get
out
rid of them
something
because they know their
to be able
trees
to.
just not worth
It'll
anything.
hold longer.
It's good to know. I mean,
Yeah,
you-
absolutely.
Yeah.
But we did have someone that told us that they would give it. Was it Scotch? It was the Scotch pine. I never went and got them yet, but I do think, from
You
what
have-
I've understand,
You have the Australian pine.
the Australian pines I didn't end up putting out. It was too hard. I felt like it wasn't going to hold the scent like I wanted. It was really hard when I was scraping on the tree,
Yeah.
and I was like, I don't think
That one's bark shags a little more too,
it's
doesn't it?
different. It was just I wasn't familiar with it, so
Yeah.
And that's weird because I don't think there's a pine tree on any of my farms. I've plenty of cedar, no
Yep.
pines.
I think that's partially why it works so well because
Yeah.
it's not there. Most
Something
of the
foreign to
places
'em.
around here is
Yep.
that's something new.
I don't know.
It's to the point where
It's native to the state, though.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
it is. 'Cause northeast corner, there's a whole bunch of them.
Yep.
Well, I see some around here when you're driving now, and I'm looking at trees and people's yards. I'm like, I wonder if they let me come.
Yeah, my
cut
neighbor's
some
getting ready to
limbs
lose some
off.
pines.
Yeah, exactly. You just need a limb or two, you know.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, I think that we've kind of beat this thing. Food is number. I mean, I think we all agree that food's going to play a primary role in what we're doing, whether they're going to or coming from. And green sources are going to be better at this early stage of October. And again, we're applying this to the Midwest, the time of year it is. And then as we move into later on, your other ags are going to start, soybeans and corn will start to be a huge factor. But as you can hear, scrapes are a big deal. I mean, they're a big deal for all of us, and we're keying in on them. And I do think that you will see, I mean, we might eat our words here in another couple weeks, but we're going to see. I do feel like we're all feel more confident going into October than maybe we ever have. And so I do think we'll see a deer or two fall in October.
Yep.
But I don't want anyone to think that, as Warren said, it's just our opinion and we're just trying. Man, when it don't work, when we don't have the right scrape or the right wind to hunt the right scrape, it doesn't mean you're not going to see me at Walmart that day shopping, because I'm going to be sitting in a stand somewhere else.
Yep.
And we may kill a deer in that typical fashion of, I know deer travel through here and we're sitting there and here he comes. And by God, I won't be any upset that I end up shooting a good deer because I did something that just by hunting, period, just applying the hunting to it. So, But as you move into, late October and then into the 1st of November, that's going to change. We'll start talking more about the rut and how that plays into it. So
a lot of times that random hunt you're talking about is when you kill a big one, because I think what you were talking about earlier, I agree with you. They pattern. They learn they've been hunting, and I think they pattern us a lot of times. So sometimes I'll just go in a totally different way, see different deer, hunt the same field 3 or 4 days in a row. I almost know who's coming out. Then come in some other different way or hunt a different stand, totally different.
I killed my deer last year.
Yep.
I was hunting one specific buck, didn't have a wind, went and hunted somewhere else completely, and shot him on the first day.
Yep.
What'd you kill last year? The one we were talking about at the rub?
No, yeah.
the 10.
Yeah.
All right. Well, anything else anyone wants to add?
We forgot, hunt with a spotlight. That's a good way to kill them.
Yeah.
Spotlight.
Jeez.
Good Lord. We do not support these things, okay? I feel like we have to go over this every time, okay? Don't do that.
Obey the laws. We all obey the laws.
Right, no, I'm just kidding.
Goodness gracious.
Shane has bought a lot of our scents, but he just pours it on the seats of his truck and rolls the windows down and drives through the field.
Turns his AC all the way up and points it out.
Lonely Hot Dough, #1 customer.
No wonder we're sold out.
Yeah, he's Lonely Hot Dough truck. That's what it is. He just drives it through there.
Yeah.
No, Shane, we sure appreciate you swinging by. And like I said, Shane's a good friend of ours. And some of the videos you've seen, Shane has supplied for us and got a lot of knowledge. I do believe highly in your success. And so appreciate you. Appreciate everyone listening.
Thanks
you
for having
guys. Yeah, thank you.
Keep leaving reviews. We appreciate it.
Yeah, I think we've started to get a few
Yeah.
more, haven't we?
Yep.
Yeah. And
And they've all been 5 stars. So I also thank you for all those you guys want 3 or less. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep them off there. We don't need any of that.
Yeah. Well,
We don't no negative energy around here.
Well, the big thing is just that and the other one that I would encourage people is let us know what you want. Let us know what you want to hear a podcast on, and we'll try to cover it. This one kind of came from someone that reached in and said that this is what they want. So, all right, well, we're going to go climb in a tree because it's now time to do that. So thanks again from the Raised Hunting crew. We sure appreciate you.